Good evening. My name is Lisa Breedlove, and for my speech, I decided to do a biography on the political views of Van Jones. Mr. Jones was born in 1968 in Jackson, Tennessee. He was raised in a very Christian family. His mom was a high school teacher, and his dad was a middle school principal. He currently lives in New York City and Los Angeles. He received his Bachelor's of Science from the University of Tennessee at Martin and his law degree from Yale University. He is an American news commentator, an author, and a non-practicing attorney. He has 2 shows on CNN. He also hosts a podcast on CNN, and he's also been a host for CNN's Crossfire, and he hosted that with Newt Gingrich. He has 3 advocacy initiatives. One is the Number Cut 50, which is an effort to cut crime and imprisonment across all 50 states. This is something he really works towards and gets really involved in. That's what I found the most information on, was his prison reform efforts. He also worked with President Obama in his green efforts, and he has a group called Green for All that he operates and supports. It's an environmental, economic, and racial justice action that seeks solutions to poverty and pollution. And he also has an initiative called Tech, and this supports recruitment of future leaders from underrepresented areas, and it's an effort to create diversity in the tech sector. Jones is the CEO of Reform Alliance, which he launched in January of 2019. The mission of Reform Alliance is to reduce the number of people who are unfairly or unjustly affected by the nation's criminal justice system. He'd like to start with probation and parole. I myself have worked as a drug and alcohol counselor in our prison system, just down here in Clifton area. And it's something that I also support with him and have been very interested. That's what drew me to do this particular biography. An act that he supported wholeheartedly was the First Step Act. It was a bipartisan initiative to make improvements in our prison system. The specifics of this bill were to eliminate the shackling of pregnant prisoners, to support the early release of the infirmed and elderly prisoners, to relocate inmates so that they would be closer, the facilities that they would be housed in would be closer to their families, and also to enable them to stay in halfway houses, or to be at home after they're released from prison for longer amount of times, basically to reduce the criminal element and get them closer to their families. Van Jones was criticized for his support of this act. He was called a sellout. Organizations like the ACLU and the NAACP were very angry that all the components of what they wanted for this prison reform wasn't included in this bill. They were afraid that if they supported this bill, then the other changes that they wanted, such as decrease terms for drug sentences, or to end abnormally long prison terms, those wouldn't ever come to pass. And so Mr. Jones explains why this is so much benefit and defends his support of it. Basically, one of his big, one of the biggest reasons that this was a remarkable breakthrough for him was that if they didn't go forward in the right direction, they may not be able to go forward at all. This was just a little bit of improvement, and it was a baby step to get there. And so I'll bring this up for a little bit.
You might think there's nothing Democrats and Republicans agree on anymore, but our very own Van Jones is supporting Jared Kushner's prison reform bill, which just passed the House with broad bipartisan support, and Van Jones joins me now. Van, good evening to you. Thank you for joining us. You know, I said it was Jared Kushner's bill, but you had a lot to do with it.
Well, you know, it's funny because I've been working, as you know, for 30 years for criminal justice reform, police reform, juvenile justice stuff. And what has happened is at the state level, at the local level, Democrats and Republicans get together all the time and have been making progress in Georgia and California and Texas, trying to have fewer people going to prison because it doesn't work. But at the federal level, we've been stuck on stupid, gridlock, no bills, nothing for, you know, too long. And so when Hakeem Jeffries from New York decided he was going to do something, he reached out to Collins, and they were able to come together with a bipartisan bill. I said, I'm going to do everything I can. And Jared Kushner said the same thing. And believe it or not, we got 350 plus Congress people to cross the aisle, hold hands, and pass a bill out of the House to help prisoners, the people who are at the bottom, who nobody cares about most of the time. Nancy Pelosi supported the same bill that Donald Trump did. I think that is...
I agree with him. I think this is a wonderful bipartisan effort on their part. A couple of things that he mentioned is that oftentimes we, later in the video, he mentions about how we get so opposed to a certain person. In this case, he mentions Trump. We're so anti-Trump that we overlook, we don't see those things that we agree upon, and we actually hurt ourselves or other people, you know, because we can't, you know, see what we agree on and those things that we actually can make a difference. And I think that that was a really great statement that he made. This particular video also goes on to show this one was just recently, back in February of this year, and when the protests started, and he was trying to express why he thought these people were going out of their way during the pandemic and risking their lives to make a statement. And one of the things that, well, a couple of things that he brought up that I really hit home is that, you know, they're just tired of people like him about hearing this bill's going to pass or that bill's going to pass. And, you know, we're just, nothing ever really happening. Another comment he makes, and I'll turn this video on in a moment, is about it's not the races that are so scary. It is the person that, you know, the white woman that supports Hillary Clinton, that's out walking her dog in Central Park, and as soon as she sees, you know, a black man that she doesn't trust, boom, the, you know, racism kicks in, you know, and she calls 911. I mean, they're just automatically, you know, it's something that's ingrained. I mean, we all profile, unfortunately, no matter how hard we try. But, you know, some people don't even realize, you know, how uncomfortable they are around a black man in a place like New York City. And then he also said, and I think this is something that we all need to do on so many issues, look in the mirror. His particular one was, you know, what is it that you do to prevent, you know, black Americans, you know, making it harder for them? But there's so many issues, like, you know, what is it you do to help? What is it you do to make it harder that are going on right now that we all could look in the mirror and question ourselves about and do better? So here's a little bit of this video. It's taking it a while to load.
There's another reality here that you're starting to see. You thought maybe the world worked one way because police are nice to you, because these things don't happen to people that you know, but the whole time there was a whole other America. And the reason that you see people now doing things that they're doing. Now, we have no idea who set those fires. It could have been provocateurs, it could be anybody. But the reason you see people willing to risk their lives in the middle of a plague and a pandemic, and to go out and literally risk their lives to protest, is because people are now fed up. People are telling me they're tired of hashtags. They're tired of Van Jones saying we can have a bipartisan solution. They're tired of people like me. They're tired of people saying over and over again that we're just basically one bill away or one election away from some progress. It's not the racist white person who's in the clue.
And let's see, the next video I had was the video where he supports President Trump's efforts to make changes to rehabilitate the law enforcement. He really likes what he has done both for law enforcement and in the criminal justice system. So here's a little bit of this video.
Try the hand-breaded Sensation Filet Sandwich Meal for a limited time, only at Zaxby's.
Hey, do you want to save money when you shop online? You should click right here and download Honey. No.
The president and what to make of the action he took on police reform today after meeting families of the victims of police violence and racially motivated shootings. He signed an executive order calling for a range of Justice Department guidelines and incentives for local police departments, seeking what the order calls, quote, independent credentialing, end quote, to certify they meet higher standards for the use of force and de-escalation training. The standards would also ban the use of chokeholds, quote, except if an officer's life is at risk.
Reducing crime and raising standards are not opposite goals. They are not mutually exclusive. They work together. They all work together. That is why today I'm signing an executive order encouraging police departments nationwide to adopt the highest professional standards to serve their communities. These standards will be as high and as strong as there is on earth.
Reaction has run the gamut. Joining us now, CNN political commentator and former senior Obama administration advisor Van Jones. Also, CNN political commentator Bakari Sellers, author of the new book, My Vanishing Country, a memoir, and retired Los Angeles Police Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey, author of Black and Blue, The Creation of a Social Advocate. Van, you've been pushing for police reform for decades. What do you make of this executive order?
Look, I think it's pushing in the right direction. The main action is going to be in Congress. The bill that the House passes hopefully next week. We'll see what the Senate does with it. That's the main action. All the good stuff is there. The danger was that you would have the president either do nothing or do something small and then say we can't have more legislation. What you got today is, I think, a sign that we are winning. Donald Trump has put himself on record saying that we need to reform the police department. And the two things I'm excited about, 20 years now we've been asking for a registry of bad cops. The federal government tracks everything on earth except bad cops. We're now moving in that direction. We've also been asking for, can you please send people who can talk people down and not shoot people down when they're in mental health crisis. Those two things are now much more likely to happen than they were before. Nobody's going to be satisfied, even if we pass the big bill we're going to pass in the House, I hope. But what I will say is this. We are winning. Donald Trump had no plan.
He goes on to say that Donald Trump had no plans about addressing these issues, and now he's addressing them, and he's doing so constructively. What I found throughout this entire process was an article. It was written by Ruben Martinez, and the title was A Politics of Compassion, an interview with Van Jones. And this, I agreed with this article. It's a really great article if you should want to read it. But they talk about Jones being his ultra left side, really into the black liberation, and then he even went on to, you know, study mindfulness or radical politics like Marxism. But after all that experience and mistakes and some failures, he came sort of to the middle. And what I saw, or what was depicted to me, is that this is somebody, regardless of whether it's Trump, you know, making a great move or Hillary not making such a great move, he goes with, you know, what he sees both sides of the story, and he compliments when a good decision is made, and he's very balanced in his approach to politics. That's what I found, you know, throughout this. Now, I don't think previously he was that way. A quote from the article that I really liked was, liberals have a binary view of bigotry. You're either a racist or an anti-racist. You're either a sexist or an anti-sexist, nothing in the middle. And see that he's even, you know, criticizing his own views as a liberal. And he's so right. And even those things that I'm personally passionate about, I find, you know, it's hard to reach the middle. But I think that maybe that's what we're all going to have to do in order to actually make some progress in this nation, is somehow get to the middle. And hopefully people like him will be continuing to do so. The next portions of the slides were just my references, and then this was a summary that I found also from that article. And thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.